Okay, so in today's tutorial, we would like to continue with the different data types in R, and we'd like to look at data frames in R. So basically, data frame are the most usual object to store data in R. In this type of object, each individual or data corresponds to a row and each column corresponds to a variable, right? So you can say that inside this type of structure, you can store different data types. One thing that you have to note is that data frames are data structures very similar to matrices. But in case of data frames, you can have different data types within columns. So the difference is that metrics store homogeneous data types, whereas data frames store heterogeneous data types. So in this tutorial, we're looking at how to create a data frame in R. So let's do that. How to create a data frame in R. So how do we do this? To do this, we have to make use of the data frame function. But first of all, we have to create some objects. So let's assume we have this object gender. So I'm using this name for gender, right? Later I'll give a proper or a correct name for this. So for now, let's use this gender. So assuming the first person is a female, the second person is a male. We also have male, let's say female, and let's say female, right? So let's create another object and call this height. So I'm using 80 for height. Let's say we have 1.75 meters, right? Let's say 2.11 meters, 1.45, let's say 1.02, 1.88, right? So let's create another object. Let's call this weight. I'm using this for weight. So let's say we have 19.8 lb or pounds, right? 25.7. Let's say 15.2. Let's say we have 28.9. Then let's say we have 36.5, right? Let's create the last object. Let's call this age, right? Let's say we have 24 or 24. Let's say we have 18, 23 or 27, 32, let's say 25, right, or 20. Okay, so now let's run this together. Okay, so basically we have everything stored in our environment, right? One thing that you have to note is that to be able to create or use the data frame function, the object must be of the same length. So you can see that here we have 1 to 5, 1 to 5, 1 to 5, 1 to 5. They have the same length. Once they have different length, you can use the function data frame. So let's give a name to the data frame. Let's call this data.frame, right? So you can now put this object inside the data frame since they have the same length. So we have gen, height, weight, and let's say age, right? So good to go. Let's run. Oh, spelling. Yep. So let's make this T. Let's run it again. Okay. So we have 5 observation of 4 variables. We can view this by using data to see how the data structure looks like. Right. So we have the gender, height, weight, age. Let's give a proper name for this variable. So I'm going to use gender. I'm going to assign the gender to this, right? And let's say height, right, and weight, right? The same for age, Right, so let's rerun this. Okay, so now we have gender, height, weight, age. So another way to have or look at the structure of the data set is to use the structure function, structure data. Right, so once you use this, it gives you all the information that you have stored in the stored in the environment. So that's basically how the structure function works. So for the data frame, 5 observation of 4 variables. The gender is a character. The rest of the variables are numeric, right? So I think we are good to go. One thing that you have to note is that basically maybe if you want to see the names of these variables of the data that you have created, you can use the names function, names, right? And just use data to get access. So this is basically to get access of the variable in the data frame or the data set. So once you do this, you have access to all the variables, the names of the variables that you have created or that you have in your data set or data frame. Right. So you can also use the summary function to basically return a statistical summary of the variables or columns of the data frame or data set. So let's say summary of data. So once you run this, it basically gives you some kind of statistical summary, right, of the, so that here we are. So that's how it works. So this is basically how to create a data frame in R.